on, guys? Aquaman here, back with another video here today because I have listened to the majority of the discography of one of the most prolific and well-respected hip-hop duos of the 2010s. And I want to talk about it a little bit because this is a part of New York hip-hop. Absolutely, it may be underground, but they were, in my opinion, one of the major players and one of the best duos of the 2010s. And I've never listened to any of their music before, so I was really curious. So let's get into it. Before we start, though, make sure to subscribe. Trying to get to 200 subscribers before the end of the year. Let's get into it. So, group I listened to was Run the Jewels, the group of Killer Mike and LP, coming together to make some of the most experimental and lyrically dense records of the 2010s and recently the 2020s as well. I will just kind of go over what I thought of each album I listened to, Run the Jewels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I'll get into just what I feel about each album and their progression and all that sort of stuff. Generally speaking, though, I will say that it was a mixed bag. It was stuff I liked, stuff I didn't like. And so, yeah, let's get into it. So, starting out with Run the Jewels 1, and I'm not going to lie, this album, in my opinion, was kind of a mess. Don't get me wrong. The production throughout the entirety of the Run the Jewels series is genuinely masterful. LP coming in with like so much range and versatility, from like production that I could hear with Travis to production that I could genuinely hear with Rakim and Boom Bap. But like even the Boom Bap is just so experiment. It's like, but it's somewhat like, even when he's on the two sides, there's like a merging of the two, because despite the crazy synths and boom bap, the crazy synths and EDM, there's still a hip hop grounding of the instrumentation that is still familiar. And then with the boom bap, there's still this modern feel to the boom bap when he goes full boom bap, and sometimes he goes pure experimental white noise, having production that's more reminiscent of Danny Brown, and he actually does have a Danny Brown feature. On I think one of the songs. I think I'm Running the Jewels 3, which we'll talk about when we get there. But that's pretty much where the quality of the album, oh, and the progression of every beat was genuinely crazy. It reminds me again of like this Travis Scott, like just pieces of music beyond choruses, beyond verses and hooks and whatever, just pieces of like instrumentation and like music that is genuinely compelling. But that's pretty much where they kind of end. The good qualities kind of end, because when we get into the writing, it's pretty underwhelming. Their chemistry at this point was clearly not fully refined, and LP really wasn't doing it for me at the time. Just to go into more specifics, there was a lot of like overly technical, miracle, spiritual, individual, metaphysical bars on here that did not lead to anything. And when it's across the entirety of an album, it gets very, very boring. On top of the fact that you can tell that Killer Mike is trying to bring some kind of consciousness into stuff, but LP is really sort of not pulling his weight or sticking to theme or whatever you want to call it. I think the biggest proof of this is like, listen to Run the Jewels 1, and the questions I have for you are, and when I say like unfocused lyrical miracle spiritual bars, right? Coming away from Run the Jewels 1, what do we know about LP's beliefs? What do we know about LP's values? What do we know about LP's goals? What do we know about his upbringing? We know nothing about LP from this entire album. And I'm not saying that you have to be OD personal, but like, you want to feel like you're like the artist is talking about something related to their experience, and especially in rap music. And when you're touted as when you're trying to do the I'm a good rapper thing, but we can't get a solid storyline or narrative focus, that's going to count against your bars, obviously. And so, and there was also like that weird song about like love and sex that was nasty and then ended in uh, that was pretty ugly. Which and I think the last song as well. I really just was not a fan of the writing, like on a conceptual level. And so yeah, no, like I said, production, musical execution on that album were amazing, but the writing really kills it for me. And in a group and in a hip hop act that is so like where the writing is brought so much to the focal point, that was really disappointing. Run the Jewels 2 was a bit better. The production, this is where we get into more of that like EDM style. I mean, more of that like boom bap style production. There was a lot of EDM, I feel like, and synths on the Run the Jewels 1. We get into more boom bap production on Run the Jewels 2. Uh, and we get a couple more sticky choruses as well, so that was pretty interesting for them to see them attempt that. And I can tell that Killer Mike was of now feeling a bit more comfortable to speak his mind. And there were moments on the record where he would talk about the potential pitfalls of adhering to white patriarchy. But, and this is a theme that you're going to see throughout. One of the biggest problems that I have with Killer Mike as a lyricist and as a rapper in general is that because it's so non-specific, it comes off as more conspiratorial than actually fully fleshed out song ideas, you know? Like, all he's saying is kill your masters. Why are the masters still alive? Stop letting people run your life. But like, he's not explaining why the masters are here in the first place. He's not explaining what do we do after we riot. He's not there. There's just a level of completeness and context to the subject matter he's trying to give that he's just unable to provide for some reason, and it makes his messaging very one note. And so while this is an improvement from the last album, because at the very least they're talking about something, and I think that LP is more comfortable on boom bap production, uh, it really still felt like they were punching below their weight belt, and I was not really impressed with Killer Mike. Again, it was nice to see him give lip service to the concepts of revolution, but that's really all it felt like, was lip service. Now, Run the Jewels 3 I think is their best project, mainly because one, you had LP truly talking about his journey and some things and some lessons he's learned along the way, and you also had more lyrical focus, getting into more personal stories that they've personally gone through, as well as I think the best fusion between the experimental, the boom bap, and the EDM that they offer with their very white noise production. There was also more features on here, which allowed it to break the monotony a little bit. Although I wouldn't say that the monotony was like super bad, because I mean the monotony is OD loud, right? But I would say that like this was, I think, the highest, like the pinnacle of what Run the Jewels is attempting to do. I especially liked the songs on the second half of the album where they got into discussions of their family life and friends who have backstabbed them in the past. I really enjoyed, and I also think that like the fact that LP would take the lead on a lot of tracks was really really great to hear. As up to this point, I was pretty disappointed with like LP from like I said, from a subject matter perspective. And then we get the Run the Jewels 4, and I think this is their second best album. It was a bit of a step down from Run the Jewels 3 because it wasn't as ambitious topically. It was also their most mainstream sounding album to me, with more trap drums. Uh, But I think that there was still a decent amount of theme if the theme was maybe a lot less heavy, with just the theme being braggadocious, braggadocia in general. But I still really enjoyed the album. And I will say though, one thing that I did notice that it was something small I noticed on Run the Jewels 3, but I noticed it more prominently on Run the Jewels 4, which is that like I feel like LP very much sort of just stood behind, like Killer Mike just went off, and like LP just kind of like tagged along bars, like he was following the lead of Killer Mike pretty much the whole album, which is not bad. And like, you know, as harsh as this is gonna sound, when you yourself don't have much substance to offer, maybe leaning on the substance of other people might work. Um, but it was definitely noticeable, right? Uh, and I think I hear it the most on this album, so it's nice because at this point I think we fully left the lyrical miracle spiritual bag of LP. Although actually there is one thing I'll talk about in a second, but I think we've mostly left the lyrical miracle spiritual bag that they were in prior, and we get like full. I think this is where we get the most amount of conscious Killer Mike, and this is where I really begin to develop like my sort of strong opinion about like, again, I appreciate the sentiment that Killer Mike exudes, and I don't even disagree with him because he's right. The way that we abide by respectability politics and the way that we cape for the white man in the face of him doing horrible atrocities and the way that we self loathe is bad. But again, it feels more like lip service. It feels more like here are points that y'all should like, um, rather than like actual, because he can't. He's not delving deep into why we are doing any of this, right? He's not delving into. He's not even delving into like what the masters did in the first place. He's literally just saying "kill your masters" over and over and over again. Uh, and so yeah, I was definitely a bit underwhelmed. And I would love to see in the future Killer Mike delve deeper. Like if we're gonna say consciousness, if we're gonna call you a conscious rapper, right? Think about Kendrick Lamar, right? And think about whenever he has a topic, whether that be, um, you know, essay, sexual, yeah, on Mother I Sober, or whether it be alcoholism on what is that? Swimming pools? I think it's swimming pools. Um, he dives deep into these topics, and I just don't feel like that same level of detail and effort is provided when it comes to these Killer Mike verses. But overall, despite my criticisms, the production does give this group a lot of boost. Just in the soundscapes that they provide alone throughout the records, I had a really, really fun time listening to it. And while there is much to be desired from LP and Killer Mike on Run the Jewels, I think the quality that they brought lyrically on Run the Jewels 4 and Run the Jewels 3 definitely gives me faith that they are indeed trending in the right direction and could go down as one of the stronger New York duos of all time. One other thing I forgot to mention about LP is like, wow, it's like he did have lyrical focus on Run the Jewels 4. Again, he was just kind of walking behind Killer Mike. But I think also like we have to start having this conversation about like, look, okay, I get it. You want to be a technical rapper, but like I think if you listen to Run the Jewels 4, you're really gonna feel like this is so technical I can't enjoy it. Like it almost reminds me of like Lupe Fiasco, but like even worse. Because at least I think with Run the Jewel with Lupe Fiasco, you could actually find some consciousness at the end. I feel like with these guys, like it, like the words are so. I feel like LP is just being wordy for no reason on this record, and again, he's still able to bring topical focus, but the words are just getting so big. Um, like Crank Lucas has a video about like when people like to use big words to describe simple things.
Metaphorical, Ford Explorer, philorical, irreversible, waterful, quarter waters and hoverboards. Mass destruction, Russian acupuncture, half a dozen munchins, luncheon, bad conjunction, pass the blunt and ass reductions.
Hey, bruh, do you hear this nigga rapping?
Half a dumpling, mad for nothing, cause you loving on the ragamuffin, anti-disestablishmentarian.
He using big words and shit, thinking he being lyrical.
Marian, Presbyterian, water dilutable, oodle noodling, poodle flow mutable. You need pharmaceutical for your cute.
And like it literally sounds like a memed out version of that. I'm like people will look at Crank Lucas's video and be like, oh, that's an over exaggeration. No, that was literally how LP was rapping, and that was like I kind of get it, but like this is complex for no reason. Like you're no longer like the diminishing returns, right? Like you are no more of a compelling rapper because you like put in extra lengthy words. Like this does not make you a better rapper. It just makes your music harder, less accessible, and for no reason, right? At least in my opinion. And hey, if that's his style, that's his style. If that's how he want to be unique, that's how he wants to be unique. But I think for me, it was just very difficult to like get into like some of the very technical verses on Run the Jewels 4. But yeah, overall, like I said, despite my criticisms, I overall enjoyed the group and was happy with their discography, and generally feel like they're trending in the right direction. And I'm really excited to see what they bring on Run the Jewels 5 if that ever comes out. However, when it comes to their potential quote-unquote GOAT status as a duo, I would say like it would, at the current moment, I would be hard-pressed to consider them a top... I'd be hard-pressed to consider them a top 30. I don't even know if I can consider them a top 30 group, honestly. Given, I think, like, I think to get into greatness categories, I think we need at least a couple. We either need one more Run the Jewels 3 or two more Run the Jewels 4s to really, I think, cement them as like a group worthy of greatness conversation. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed doing these deep dives of discography. I got another group, a newer group coming up next called the Cash Collectors, so look out for that. With that being said, peace, y'all.